So I basically just made this entire video already, but it kind of turned out sad because this is a topic that really is kind of sad to talk about for me. And so I'm gonna try and remake it and make it a bit more lighthearted and maybe not post the other one. It was like half an hour of me being sad about this topic. So we're going to try and make this a little bit happier. We're going to go over kind of proper training and how to properly, respond to birds in different situations. And we're going to go over one main topic today, and I'm going to try and stay focused on this one topic and not get sidetracked again. And what we're going to talk about is dominance and kind of the way flocks really work in the wild and how this applies to actually in our homes and how we've been wrong all these years. The main thing that people have difficulty with is not dominating over something. I don't know if you've noticed this, but in every animal we've tried to work with, it always comes down to we have to be better than it. We have to seem like we're stronger than it. Like with dogs, it was proved, people believed that you were supposed to use prong collars and abusive types of techniques to make the dog submissive to you. And it's been proven that positive reinforcement techniques work so much better, and that a lot of training is built a lot more on trust and proper training than force and submission are. And so we're going to go over how this applies to parrots and why we need to throw the dominance theory way out the window. I have a window over there if you're wondering why I'm going that way. There's two windows, just to make sure that the dominance theory really goes way out those windows. The main argument I typically get when I bring up how parrots and birds aren't dominant is the geese. And people say that geese fly in a V, and the bird at the top is obviously the leader. He's the big macho bird telling people where to go. And this is wrong. That bird is typically never the same bird. They rotate. The bird at the front is typically the strongest bird at that time, the one that's least tired, the one that can take on all the headwinds and kind of block off wind from, all the other birds at the back that kind of need to take a bit of a rest. So the bird at the top is never going to be this big macho bird, and it's never going to be the same bird every single day, because I don't know if you've been playing, as an example, if you play Wii cycling, and you sit right behind a person, you can kind of cruise for a while as you get their draft. And that's kind of the same effect that it has up there, is the bird at the front is taking all the energy to actually fly through the wind, and the ones behind are kind of getting a little bit of a break, and then when that bird gets tired, they switch and they keep going. So the bird at the front is not some macho leader. Can you tell me where a dominant bird is in this flock of budgies? Which one of these birds is telling all the others where to go? Is it one over here? Is it one over here? Maybe it's one that's up a bit high. There's no way that one little budgie in there is telling all the others where to go. So that just kind of, in sense right there, just throws a ton of what we believe out the window. In a flock, there's three main rules: separation, alignment, and cohesion. And what these things are, so separation is the amount of space between you and your neighbor, and so that way when you're flying, you don't crash into someone. Alignment is how close you are to the bird in front of you. So with Canada geese, you'll see them flying, they're on those diagonal lines, and you'll notice they kind of have even spacing between one another. They're not so close that, they're colliding head to bird butt, and they're not so far that they're kind of falling behind. So, and then the last one is cohesion, and this is understanding the movements of the birds around you. So if one bird kind of gets startled and swerves, the entire flock moves together and swerves. If all the birds are hanging out on a bunch of trees, and all of a sudden they see a berry bush down below, and that bird gets excited and goes, they all travel together. And the reason why birds do this is because they're prey species. So what I'm referring to here is, I'm not talking about birds of prey, because I don't really have a full understanding of how their sort of mentalities work, and they're not really a flocking species. But what my main focus here is going to be parrots, obviously. So they're a prey species, everything wants to eat them, and so their strength is obviously going to be in numbers. So rather than having one bird telling everybody what to do and everybody relying on that one bird's reactions, they rely on every birdie. One bird might have better reactions than you do. And if you want to survive, maybe that one bird that randomly got startled can save the entire flock. So it's all about listening to birds around you, watching their body language and understanding how to move together as a unified group, not, one commanding officer. And there's a video of starlings participating in something known as murmuration, and I'll put that up if I can find the video. And what they do basically is they put on what we consider these fabulous shows where they fly around and, they'll create, innate designs and without flying into one another. And there isn't one bird standing at the front, conducting the entire thing like an orchestra. They're working together to develop these ornate designs. The number one problem we seem to have that people have put this term on is height dominance. And it's in my personal opinion and many trainers' opinions around me that height dominance isn't really existent. The bird isn't feeling dominant when it's higher. The bird isn't feeling like it's overpowering you when it's higher. What's happening is when the bird's up higher, it's more fun. It's much more stimulating, there's a lot more things going on, it's a much better view, it feels much safer to them. So obviously they're going to want to be up high. If you're a prey species that's constantly getting chased around and eaten, being up on that door is going to be much safer than sitting down low on a human hand that you're uncomfortable with. And we commonly, interpret this as the bird being taller than us, therefore it must want to be better than us, that it thinks it's more powerful than us. And this is very wrong. The same thing goes with the bird sitting on your shoulder, and it's really not the correct way of thinking with this, because it's been, proven 100 times over that birds really don't feel more dominant than you when they're higher. If you've ever watched, a free flight show, you'll see the birds, up high on buildings or up on trees, and they'll fly straight down to their trainer. If the bird had the desire to feel dominant over them, it would just stay up in that tree. It wouldn't come down to them just because they ask. And, same thing applies for in home. If my birds fly up onto a door and I'm about to serve a meal and I want them to come down, I just ask them to come down, and they come down because they trust me, because I am a positive experience, because they know they're safe here, and it's all positive, it's all, a unified group. This is a safe flock for them to be in. It's not somewhere where they feel the need to, fly up and be scared and feel the need that up there is so much better than being down on the floor. So what will happen is the bird will start to lower its head and display aggressive signs. It might bend over, it might flare its tail, it might start eye pinning, it might start hissing, it might start opening its beak, it might kind of start swaying back and forth a bit, and people instantly think that the right reaction is to push into the bird and make it do what you want it to do. Be the dominant figure. Be the top bird. No. When this happens, back down. The bird is telling you, no, I don't like what you're doing. I like it up here. It's fun up here. I'm having a good time. Leave me alone. You pushing into it is going to get you bitten. That is likely going to make you mad or upset. And then you're going to take the bird and throw it in a cage to punish it. And that's just entirely the wrong way to go about it. When a bird starts displaying those signs of aggression, you back down, you let the bird know, okay, you have fun up there, I respect your opinion, I trust you, you can trust me, and you let them make the decision to come down on their own. And the way you can do this is through things like target training. And this is, for some reason, something that people really ignore, because the concept of getting a bird to touch its beak to a stick seems way too boring for us, and we like to just skip over this step. But target training can really help with situations like this, because target training is fun. It's something they enjoy, it's something they want to do more of, and there's lots of treats and fun things involved. So when they're up high, somewhere where they don't want to be, you can just target them down, and they'll be like, that's really fun, I get food, I am gonna follow this stick and come down off of this door, because I am gonna get food, I am motivated to get this food, this is lots of fun, let's do this again. And so that's the right way to go around things, is to make the bird have more fun being lower on the ground. Put foraging toys down here, play with them down here, have them, make the active decision to come down on their own like they would in the wild. Birds aren't domesticated. They're not gonna come down off a door to please us. It's not something a wild parrot would do. It's not something a captive parrot is going to do. They're going to do whatever pleasures them, whatever gets them excited and stimulated, whatever's most fun for them. And so that's the way we need to approach things. We need to make it as enjoyable for them as it can be, rather than making them submissive and flooding them and forcing them into doing things that the human so obviously desires to do. It's like the one thing we have to apply to everything is we have to force it to do what we want to do. So the main thing that we tend to do when a bird does a behavior we don't like, so say it's screaming or it's biting or it's up somewhere you don't want it to be, we tend to take a spray bottle and spray the bird, or we chase it, or we throw a towel over it and we throw it in a cage, or we yell at it, and these are all forms of negative punishment. And punishment's kind of a weird term because as soon as I say punishment, you think like hitting something. You think a form of physical punishment that's aggressive. And punishment, in definition, is doing something, is eliminating something from an environment that's undesirable, that's going to stop a behavior. And so punishment, as its actual definition, works with birds in minute forms. So if I'm training a bird to, shake, and it hands me its foot, and it keeps trying to put its beak there and trying to kind of nibble at my hand, what I would do is I would take, the treat, the thing the bird wants, I would remove that from the situation, and that's something undesirable. The bird wants the treat to come back. It'll gradually learn that every single time it goes through my hand, the treat disappears. The desirable thing disappears and is removed from the environment. And since it really is motivated for that treat, and the bird will stop biting my hand, it'll stop reaching for my hand, just so that way it can earn the treat. And it might take a little while for them to catch on what's making the treat go away, but if they want the treat bad enough, they will stop doing what's ever making the treat go away. So that's a correct use of punishment with birds, because it happens right in that instant. It doesn't physically hurt the bird in any way, it's not mentally damaging to them. It just makes them think and makes them more motivated to figure out why the desirable thing is leaving. Oh, that hurt my neck. Hi. Wanna come join us? Yeah, hi. Where are you gonna go? There you go. Sorry about that. So methods of punishment that don't work are things that physically hurt the bird or kind of actually confuse them. So screaming at the bird, yelling at the bird, spraying the bird, throwing a towel over the bird, throwing a towel over the bird's cage, throwing them in a cage and locking the door. These things do not work at all. What they can do is actually make the bird hate you. It's because they are not domesticated. They don't feel the need to kind of, earn your praise. They don't feel the need to please you. So when you're spraying it, the bird's just saying, well, this person's rude, this person's mean, I don't want to be associated with them, and they'll start to associate you with negative things, and they can start to hate you, they can start to bite you, they can make their behavioral problems worse. So spraying them is definitely not the way to go around things. Same goes for, throwing the towel over the cage. The thing that really kind of makes you chuckle a little bit is the concept of prolonged timeouts. So shoving the bird in a cage and locking it for half an hour. If the bird bit you and you throw it in there, it's not going to relate biting you and being in the cage. Because the time it took for you to pick up the bird and put it in the cage, enough time has passed that they're not understanding why they're in the cage. And when they're being locked in there for so long, that it's just making them frustrated. They don't know why they're being locked in their cage. All they know is you were really mean and you locked them in that cage, and now they're bored out of their minds and they're pissed off. And that's just not good. The type of timeout that does work is a timeout that happens exactly as it happens. So if I'm working with a bird, on a T-stand, and I'm doing that training again and the bird bit me, I'd take my hands away from the situation. I might turn my back to the bird for just a moment just to eliminate the positive things, so the treats and interacting with me. If the bird got, too excited and that's why it bit me, and, interacting with me is stimulating and rewarding, I turn my back to the bird loses that interaction stimulation, that's a timeout. In the exact moment that something happened, positive stuff was removed from the situation, The bird doesn't want that to happen, so the bird won't repeat the behavior over time. You are chewing my shirt. Mwah. Mwah. Cheep. Why are you so tired? We all woke up and we all had a very gloomy video, so we're all super tired. Where are you gonna go? You go up there? Alright. Flying solo now. So we really need to pay super close attention to their body language. We need to respect their body language. We need to react to them properly. And that's the other issue. Yelling. If a bird bites you and you yell at it and you go no and you make a big deal out of it, and sometimes even just saying no to the bird is stimulating enough for them. What do birds do in the wild? What do birds do in your home? They scream, they get loud. When they're happy and excited, you might see them playing upside down with their toys, making loud noises. That's fun for them. When you're yelling at a bird, it can actually think that you're enjoying it, and it can make the behavior repeat because that's reinforcing to them. Okay, so this is where the video got kind of gloomy last time. And it's all about kind of human nature. We feel the need to dominate things. We feel the need that we're always right. And we struggle with accepting the fact that things change, that we aren't always right. And I know I struggle with this a lot, and I'm sure some of you have noticed that, is I don't like being wrong. Nobody likes being wrong. And so when something new is introduced and someone's saying that the way we've been doing things is wrong, we get defensive and we can go, no, I don't want to believe that I was wrong. I'm not a bad person. And that is really hurtful, not only for ourselves, but for our birds as well. Because the way things were 10 years ago aren't the way they are anymore. And that goes, for everything, for their diet, for their care, for their training. It's all different than it was 10 years ago, and we really need to accept that training especially is something that changes every day. We learn new things as we go along, and so we really need to be accepting of that. One of the main things, I'm trying to avoid the topic now, is accepting the fact that it's our fault. This is something we all struggle with. We don't want to think it's our fault, but when you're interacting with a bird and it starts getting defensive and it bends down and it bites you and you get mad at the bird, that's your initial reaction, is to yell at the bird, to get mad at the bird because it bit you. But what happened before that? The bird was telling you, no, go away. The bird was bending down, the bird was opening its beak, the bird was hissing at you, the bird was tail flaring, its eyes were pinning. It was telling you in every possible way in bird language to go away. And you pushed past that. We've all pushed past those signs and gotten bitten. And it was our fault we got bit. And that's something we struggle with. We need to accept the fact that it was our fault. It's not the bird's fault that it bit us. It's our fault that it bit us because we weren't listening. And the more we push past those signs, the more we don't listen to them, the more likely it's going to skip over trying to be nice to you and it's just going to go straight to biting. And if you listen to those body language signs, like with my birds, they don't want to step up every single time. They will bend their heads every now and then and say, no, I don't really feel like stepping up right now. I'm having too much fun with this toy. And they'll lower themselves to the ground and I just back off. And they still show me those signs and tell me, no, please leave me alone. And I'll leave them alone. If I pushed past those signs every time, do you think they'd continue to put those signs? No. Because if I'm not listening, why should they bother saying it to me? If I'm, constantly ignoring everything they have to say, they're going to skip all those little tiny signs and they're just going to go straight to biting me. And that causes a lot of aggression problems, a lot of other behavioral problems. And so what we really need to do is we really need to listen and we need to accept the fact that getting bitten is our fault. It's not the bird's fault it bit us. We weren't listening. And we need to learn to work positively around these experiences, learn from it, and get better. Instead of sitting here and, whining and complaining and yelling and getting frustrated. Just, it happened. It's done now. You didn't listen, you messed up. I've gotten bitten. I got bit by an African grey, which completely messed up my fingernail because I wasn't listening. Because I was still new to this, and I misread eye pinning that was supposed to be excitement as aggression, and so it bit me. And, that was my fault. My bad, I messed up. I got bitten. It happens. I now understand how to read African greys better, so they don't bite me as much. And, It just takes time. I can promise you, when I first brought birds home, I messed up. Everybody messes up. And that's something we really need to accept, is we can screw up. And that's okay. As long as we learn and we change and we get better. And so if you're someone that was previously, using a spray bottle on your bird, it's not necessarily, you're not a bad person. It may just be that you were misled. You read bad information, or you read that 10 years ago when we didn't know all too much about the way birds work. And so it's not so much that you're bad, you're not a bad person because you mess up. I'm gonna sneeze. No? My eye's just gonna water and sneeze is not gonna come out. Okay, so you're not a bad person because you received bad information or because you read something 10 years ago. As long as you learn and grow and change from those things, that's what would make you a good person. What would make you a kind of a relatively bad person would be if someone said, hey, have you tried this instead? What you're doing might not be best for your bird, and you go, screw that person. I was told this 10 years ago from some old man on a street, and I've been doing it ever since. I'm not a bad person. I'm not an abusive animal owner. I'm not going to listen to them. And doing that would make you a bad person, because you're endangering your bird. It's actually a form of abuse if in an acute form, and people don't like that word. People don't like believing that they're animal abusers, but because you take it a little too literally in its most intense form. And when I say abuse, you think that dog kind of chained up in a backyard that's, dehydrated and emaciated. You don't think about the psychological damage you're doing on your bird. And when you're forcing past the signs of body language, when you're spraying it and you're making it mad at you, those can be forms of abuse because you're hurting your bird mentally, you're creating more problems than you started, you're not listening and growing, you're not putting your bird's best interest in front of your own. You're wanting results right away, you're wanting to force the bird into submission, you're not listening to your bird, you're not doing what's best for your bird in that instant. You're doing what's best for you. And people don't like that idea. I know I certainly wouldn't like that idea, but we need to accept that that's something that's wrong. We need to accept that we can be wrong, and that things change. And who knows, maybe 10 years from now I'll be making a different video that completely contradicts everything I've said in this one. You don't know, because things change, and we can't stop that. And it's just learn and grow and be accepting of the fact that we can be wrong. And I know it's difficult sometimes to be told you're wrong, especially when there's a life in your hands, but pet ownership needs to be taken a bit more seriously than it is. And instead of putting our beliefs and our egos, first, we need to start thinking about them. We need to realize that if we're going to bring an animal into our lives, we have to be willing to change. We have to be willing to put misconceptions and stereotypes, behind us and throw it way out the window. We have to be willing to accept the fact that we can be wrong. And we really need to be putting their health and their care as top priority. And sometimes that means rehoming birds. Sometimes that means just doing more research and, learning. Sometimes that means taking them to a vet, regardless of how small the bird is. And it's something that's difficult for all of us, that I feel really shouldn't be all that difficult. When you bring a life into your home, it's your responsibility to take the absolute best care of it that you possibly can. And we tend to put our desires ahead of their proper care. And so instead of thinking, hey, maybe I'm wrong, maybe I should be doing this instead, maybe this is better for the bird, maybe this will make their life more enriching, we think, I'm more important, I want to be right, this is my bird, this is the way I want to raise it, this is the way I was taught for 10 years. This is the way it's going to be. You're putting your thoughts ahead of the bird's care. And that happens with every species that people own as pets. That's one of the main problems with the pet industry, and it's just a giant dwindling spiral of misconceptions and lies, and we really need to accept the fact that we can be wrong. We really need to accept that the bird's care is much more important than any of our egos, any of our opinions, and really we need to do lots of research and really prep ourselves for the proper care that we can for these guys. The whole kind of thing about caring for an animal is that you're going to take the absolute best care of it that you can. Not that you can prove to yourself that you're not a bad person. And that's the thing I think we all struggle with, is when we bring a pet into our lives. We want to prove to ourselves that we were never wrong, that right from the get-go we were perfect, and we're not. Right from the get-go we're never going to be perfect. I could promise you when these two came home, I didn't know every detail about feather structure and how to care for it. I didn't know 1,000 different ways to train the same concept, but I learned and I got better. And that's something I think we all need to do, is we need to look back on what we did and learn from it. I'm sure if we were to look at any aspect of our lives, we've all screwed up. We've all made mistakes, we've all not known something, and when that happens, we learn from it. Even if it's something as simple as that time you made a cake and accidentally put in a tablespoon of salt instead of a teaspoon. Let's tell that story. Let's make this more lighthearted, okay? So, example that's not bird related. When I was in like grade 6, so, middle school, I was not all too bright. And we were in foods class, and we were making, I think it was muffins, and it was calling for like a teaspoon of salt. And I was like, okay, a teaspoon. And the teaspoons magically all disappeared. And I don't know where they went, but all the teaspoons were just gone from our kind of section. So I thought, tablespoon. It just has one extra letter. It can't be that much bigger. So I took a tablespoon of salt and I dumped it into the muffins. And needless to say, they tasted really disgusting, and the entire batch just basically was just grotesque, and I couldn't eat more than a bite of those nasty, nasty muffins, and my entire foods group still has no idea that I put the salt in and that it was my fault, but hey. But now I know the difference between a teaspoon and a tablespoon. And I mean, laugh at me if you will, but that's what I'm talking about, is in a more lighthearted way. I screwed up. I made really nasty ass muffins. I am never gonna mistake a teaspoon for a tablespoon again. And yeah, I had a bad experience, I screwed up, I accept the fact that I was wrong, and get better. And so that's kind of the point I'm trying to get at here in as light and delicate way as I can possibly get. As we do mess up, and we need to be more accepting of the fact that that happens, that that's just fact, that it's just the way things happen. And so yeah, don't fall into this pit of misconception where birds need to be dominated. It's not true. There's way better methods to go about these things that have been proven to work, much better and longer lasting. And so just, be careful where you get your information from. Make sure you research the same thing 8 times. Find different places to find this information. And, really, really put your heart into it. If you're taking care of a life, and I know birds are small, and I know that we like to think of them as bird brains, that they're stupid, and regardless of whether or not you believe they're stupid, I personally don't. I think you're better than a person. We need to realize that that's a life right here. This is a living thing. This is no different than a child. I personally think it's a bit better than children. I don't like children all too much. But we need to accept the fact that this is a life. Their health and safety should be above all else. And if that means admitting that we were wrong and that it's our fault, then that's what we do have to do. And that's kind of something we need to accept, it's something we need to get over, and I hope we can. I hope that whoever's watching this video takes this lightheartedly and doesn't randomly send me a message yelling at me because I told them they were wrong, because that happens way more often than it should, and it's not pleasant to deal with. Just egos get in the way a lot, and that's something we don't like the idea of, is that we can be very egotistical. We really need to start putting these little lives ahead of ourselves, regardless of if you have a giant macaw or a tiny little budgie. They're all alive. They're no less important. They deserve no less care. They deserve to be alive. They deserve to have enriching lives, and that should be our best interest. Beep. Do I get kisses now? Just because I talked about you? Yeah. I don't want to end a video this sad. The last one was way worse. The entire video was just like a gloomy thing. So, keep flip, good girl. Here we go, let's finish like this. Look at this! This cute bird! Look at how much fun we're having. Look at this. Is it gonna focus? Yeah. Look at that bird. Look at that foot. Can you do the leg twitch? You don't do leg twitches anymore? There it goes. Leg twitch. Alright, cutie, can you come up? Good girl. Alright, so hopefully you kind of learned from this. Hopefully while watching this you didn't start getting defensive and, mad, because it happens a lot, and I really don't want that to happen this time, because every time this topic comes up, somebody gets mad at me for some reason or another, and typically it has to do with the fact that we don't want to be wrong, and I'm sorry if I come off as, aggressive, or if I've insulted you. I am sorry. I'm not trying to, blame you or get mad at you. I'm just trying to say there's better ways to do things than what we've previously done that have been proven to work better, and what we've known before may not be what we know today, and that changes with every aspect of animal training and animal care. And so yeah, so I hope you learned from this. I really hope that someone doesn't get mad at me. It's like I'm hesitating to stop this video because I don't want to have to post it because someone's gonna yell at me. So yeah, let's not yell at me. Right. Okay, so anyways, I hope you learned something, and, feel free to send me a message, comments, questions, feedback, anything, I should fix or change to make this easier to understand. If I did offend you, I'm sorry. I hope that, we can learn and grow and, get better at what we do to make their lives, you're over here, their lives, better and more enriching. And so, let me know how you feel about this. I tried to get you guys interacting on Tumblr before I started this video on which bird I should use, and nobody commented, so I just brought both of them. You can't even see her, but she's over here. She's kind of in my hair. She's sleeping. There she is. Little bird, little puff. So they both came today, which is kind of a good thing, because apparently I had a little breakdown in there. We're good. We're good. We're calm. Relatively, we're good. Anyways, so I'm gonna stop this video now and fix myself. And well, I hope this information was useful. I hope it'll help you kind of think a bit more about, whatever. And I hope that we'll, learn and grow together as a family. And so, yeah, I hope you had a good time. And maybe leave a comment down below of what bird you'd like to see next time, since nobody commented this time. And so, hopefully I'll be back tomorrow, assuming my neck is still doing okay. And I'll, try and make another video on whatever topic's next, and we will address that as it goes. So thank you so much for watching and everything. Thank you for your time. Thank you for maybe considering the fact that maybe we've been wrong, and, even just taking a second to watch this video is, you know, a start. And I'm just gonna stop talking now, but, you know, thank you for being here and maybe taking even maybe a split second to think that maybe what someone might have been doing previously could be wrong. Thank you for taking that second. Even if it's just a second, it does matter. And so, thank you. And I'm sorry this video is probably really long. The recording time's already 40 minutes. So I'll crop this down and maybe take out that entire section where I kind of broke down. And here it comes again. Right, okay, I'm just gonna stop this video here. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.